And a very warm welcome. You're joining us at Hyde Park on Ada Derana 24. Tonight on the show, we thought of talking about the Northern Province, people of the Northern Province, the aspirations of the North, and how this goes in line with economic development of the province, especially concerning the North and East, in line with national development. I've invited to our studios Governor of the Northern Province, Jeevan Thiagarajah. A very warm welcome to you.
Good evening and thank you.
I thought of probably starting off asking you what the sentiment of the North is on the current economic crisis. Of course, from around and parts of the country, we do see queues, long queues for petrol, diesel and gas shortages. In the North too, what kind of feedback do you get from the people?
The way I would put it, we got about 1.26 million people. 20% urban, 80% rural. So that says a lot. 80% rural, they're in villages. Sometimes they're far away from markets. Buses are not necessarily frequent. It's a very rural population. But having said that, every single one of them is quite resilient. They've been through hard life. They have a formidable life even now. They have to earn, they have to work to earn. Mm-hmm. That's the way I put it. They're holding.
What kind of grievances do they have given these the economic conditions that we're faced with, and the restrictions and the supply of necessities to the people? How do you analyze the situation there in the North?
We produce enough food for ourselves, but we supply to the market. Market prices are not the same as our production or farm gate prices. That's the catch. At another level, everybody wants decent earnings. Some of them or most of them would like government jobs. The young want quick earnings. They want to be upwardly mobile. They are mobile. They're constantly moving around, which is normal, very normal. And of course, there's another segment which is elderly. So different aspirations, different hopes, different needs. Some have to work very hard, particularly the fisher folk, the farmers and things like that. And there is the school-going age, the ones who just come out of school, the gap year ones. So different sentiments.
When you accepted the post of Governor of the Northern Province in October 2021, just last year, what were the government's objectives and how far have you come to achieve those objectives?
Right. The governor's appointment is a presidential appointment. So it's the view of the president of the day and what he wants or she wants from his governors in different parts. So the objectives of one province need not be the same as another. He wanted, I believe, the president, he wanted somebody to go out there and get things moving. That's his broad message. And he's given a completely open slate to go get the job done. So in kind of a rapid order, what I can say is that I mentioned it previously, 1.26 million people. We will be digitally working on the development of every household. Mm-hmm. We will work on every single person who's receiving Samurdhi. We will definitely look at those who received rehabilitation from the Bureau Commissioner General Rehabilitation. We'll look at the disabled. Then there'll be a weightage for women, women's cooperatives, women's enterprises. We are looking at sentiments of the youth now, men and women. That's at a very basic level. We want government to go to people. We want public grievances to be picked up before they come to us. We have a huge development officer cadre. They're all graduates, or mostly from that area. We're going to put them to good use. Samurdhi, we have about 172,000. We like to bring it right down. We want to work on every single family. We'd like to give land to the poorer segments. We want to help them build up. Looking at the shelter needs, generational loans if possible, social impact bonds to finance some of these things. We want connectivity between the agriculture sector, local distribution networks, and retailers. For example, Satosa is setting up a whole network because we want people to be able to buy at a reasonable price. We're going to see a tech revolution very soon. It's a 2014 tech policy that's now being revived again, where through schools you don't need O-level, A-level. You'll be taught IT, you'll be taught English, you can work on maths, you can work on...
At what grade is this, IT? And
it can come from 16 onwards. And these labs are available for the school children during school hours and off school. University of Morutu is coming online, which is fantastic. So that we're going to absolutely unleash a tech revolution. Because of the fact that we've got about 51% forest, we have 22% of the coastline, we have 28 natural islands. We want to go green. We want to power up green. We want to export green. We haven't harvested the sea as much as we could or should. That's a whole area we can do. We want investment promotion. We want sea-going vessels to come. We want aircraft to come. We like to be able to service maybe helicopter engines, the small aircraft. We have 2 airfields, Palali and Vaunia, both real estate. We want the province to be a second home for people outside. This, Malaysia, Thailand, India, they do. Now, there are Sri Lankans overseas. 1.26 million is not the whole story. There are people of Sri Lankan origin outside. They have skills, they have resources, they can be attracted back. Of course, it's market driven. We are also, one of the largest global markets is close to the northern province. That's the Indian subcontinent.
right.
So that's another whole area. In fixing all of this, I mentioned food. We've got a hard-nosed agriculture drive, so agriculture, irrigation, environment together, combining forces. Northern province and North Central province will walk together in certain areas. We can link with Eastern province. Culturally, we are opening up. We are going to have a special Sinhala Tamil New Year coming up. So North, Central, and Southern provinces coming together. Museum. Now we just opened up the Jaffna Cultural Center, which is a gift to the government of India. So that's an iconic piece of work. The fort, the old Kacheri, can open up. I've invited some of the media houses to have movie nights, musical nights. We're opening up.
Right. We're talking about, when we talk about the North and East, we talk about 2 war-ravaged provincial economies. And when you talk about the North alone, there are issues unique to just the Northern province. How far do you think these development aspirations of the North can be achieved, apart from all these that you spoke of, from bringing in tech-driven projects into the economy of the province? Do you think IT and tech-driven the revolution would uplift the economy of the province? As you said, 80% of the economy is rural.
No, you have to put a soul to it. So it's not all tech. It won't be anesthetized and sterile. We have to put, heart and mind to it, definitely. We'll have to look inwards, definitely repair old wounds, repair old minds, as it were. Deal with some of what we've had in the past. But at the same time, all countries have histories, and all histories have ups and downs. Ours is no better. But what is important is that you don't allow the negatives of history to return to you. So for example, right now, and I've said it publicly, I don't quite like the idea that you can use religion to turn against another religion. And that's, just forget about it. It's a no-go, it's not a conversation. Don't even think about it. We don't like it, don't do it. We can't go down the sectarian path because we are multi-religious, we've got all the religions out there, and we cannot afford that kind of thing. But Tamil society, and I think I can afford to say it, needs to ask ourselves, how open are we? How tolerant are we for people to express themselves? Are we a liberal society? Are we free of caste and class? If not, what do we do about those things? Is caste and class something we should be having around, hanging around the place? How do you open up? The point I'm asking also is that numerically, demographically, the country has more, just shade over 51 women and slightly less of men. And I ask, where are the women leaders? Why? Why can't we see more? Why aren't we seeing them? They are in higher education, definitely, but why aren't they out there in society, in leadership positions? We need to see that happen. Why aren't we seeing that? What's stopping us? What are we doing stopping them from coming out? So I think inward looking is what I'm saying. Fix ourselves, be confident, be bold, also be civilized, be cultured.
We're multi-ethnic, a society that has different ethnicities coexisting. But at the same time, do you think we've done we have made meaningful progress in achieving the reconciliation needed to bridge the gaps between societies and communities post-war?
In terms of, how do I put it? At the level of functional policy, we are seamless. So about a week back or 10 days back, the Prime Minister was there. His ministries were in Jaffna. We had an amazing meeting on culture. We took some far-reaching decisions, and we are going to connect North, Central, and Southern provinces. The 3 governors will come together. We're going to have a special New Year, as I mentioned. We're doing all of that. But we need to do much more. We need to allow people to travel, talk to each other, travel together, work together. And that's when the bonding happens. And I must say, I've seen this business for about 30, 35 years. And a mistake we made, and I say we, I included, was that we spoke about everything else other than traditional knowledge. So we have huge reservoir of traditional knowledge, Ayurveda, literature, culture. We never thought of bringing that together sufficiently. I would say that's the super glue for the future. Now we are bringing it, we are more conscious of that. North itself has over 200 Ayurveda doctors. I mean, people pay to take them out. It's a very valuable resource. So once we start talking about our commonalities, you go to Dalada Maligawa, destination 1 is the temple of the Tooth Relic, destination 2 is Vishnu in Dalada Maligawa. So which means that it is one and the same in 2 names of religions, one and the same. So there's a lot that we can bring together. We've got to work on that.
Language has been a big factor that hindered progress in terms of reconciliation. Through history, we've seen how language impacted and created a lot of issues within the country. Do you think we've addressed the question of language in Sri Lanka, a small island nation, effectively?
Consciously, yes. We've had a bad past. We've rectified it. We have the institutional mechanisms, but I can say it because I was there. I was in the Official Languages Commission. I, along with former Additional Solicitor General, drafted the Official Languages Commission Act years ago. And we need to be making far greater use of the legal provisions. Official Languages Commission has to go out there boldly, do their job. We can support them. So legally, we don't have anything wrong. Practically, we can do a whole lot more. So we will be a bilingual province. Sri Lanka will have its 2nd police training school in the north. Tamil policemen are being recruited. They'll be trained in the north. So what was Katukurundu or Kalutara will be Vaunia, Kanagara Pulam Vaunia. So there's very different things are going on now. Whole lot more. We can build more. But I'd say the temperature is down.
We spoke about development into the north. We spoke about an expressway connecting the north and the south. But in order to see this kind of tangible development, what more does the northern people expect? We've been talking about the south, the north, the east and the west, but we're talking also about a national economy, which is battered by policies over the years that have affected the economy, as well as dwindling rupee, and we're talking about shortages to the economy. But as the North, contribution to the national economy and development, so that we can integrate this development in the national economy, where do you see this?
Sure, our rankings are down. Unemployment rate is too high, joblessness, poverty too high, which means we need to be paying very close attention. We can't have a restive population. We need to be keeping a 24/7 eye on essential services. We need to care to ensure that we understand what people feel. Leadership is important. The messaging of leadership is important. Confidence factor, what do you give people? What's the confidence factor that you give? And if abnormality cannot be the status quo.
Right. We'll take a short break here at Hyde Park on Ada Derana 24. Do stay with us. We're in conversation with the Governor of the Northern Province. Welcome back. We're in conversation with the Governor of the Northern Province, Jeevan Thiagarajah. Governor, if you can tell us what you think of the aspirations of the youth are now in the Northern Province, especially as we talk about supporting youth development, empowering youth of the entire nation. What aspirations of the youth would you share with us?
The way I would characterize it is that very recently there was a space which was never used by the sea in KKS, which was cleaned up. It's a mini version of Golface, reasonably large. And the youth from Trincomalee come all the way up there. And they are youth like anybody else, tattoos, music, mobile phones, jeans, very young, very hip. And they're upwardly mobile. They want to enjoy life, which may be a bit excessive because I think they need to do some work as well. But youth like anybody else. Well, there one thing though I must confess, they are fairly bold. They are fairly bold, and they look at you in the eye and talk to you. They're not backing off. So that's a strength that we need to use.
What are their needs at present?
Jobs, cash, livelihood, transport, phone, mobility.
What can the government do to bring jobs, cash and transportation and that access to technology?
I mean, the government can provide the enabling environment. Government alone can't provide everything. They can provide a fair marketplace where talent can blossom. You can earn freely without corruption, that you be treated fairly, that you have access like everybody else. Mobility is available, you're protected, you feel safe. Those are the things government can do. They can provide access to education, higher education, vocational education, banking services, jobs overseas. That's what the government can do. Then the rest, it's up to the market. It's also up to the talent of the people to go out, reach, do, work things for themselves. So it's a bit of both. Government can't do everything. But at the same time, as I said, the enabling factor, confidence factor. It's important that youth don't leave permanently. If they go, they're going for shorter periods. They're traveling across the country. They feel that they can go and work in other parts of the country. They can come back home. That they can have access to jobs even in their areas. Complex, but that's the marketplace.
You talk about an enabling environment, and there is also a need to create jobs within the province. But how much of investment is coming into the north? And is there an enabling environment to attract those investment? Especially you spoke about a shift from an agro-based economy into a more IT and technology-driven provincial economy.
So I think that's the balance, because you're shaking a very heavy rural economy into a semi-urban economy, and that's the balance that has to be done very carefully. Investments, yes, but investments can't be at the expense or exploiting people. We have to maintain that balance. You can't radically transform rural to urban immediately. It has to be very carefully done. The transformation itself has to be done by the people of that area. For youth who are coming out at 18, 19 to running businesses at 25, 30, there is a time gap. What can we really do in that area? Yes, foreign investors can come in, they can employ for certain things. Enterprise, local enterprise has to take over. Enterprise of the market. Dignity in the profession. So we are talking NVQ2 basic for pre-existing skills, building on that. We are saying O-level, good idea. Even if you don't have, that's okay. You can keep going. You can go NVQ 3, 4, 5, 7. Other ways of getting up there. That means creating new vocations. Vocations for the market. Market is not just the Sri Lankan market. We're talking in terms of potentially Indian market. Distance markets are different. So Korea, Middle East, Italy, that's a long way to go. There is market out there too. But how far do you want to be away from home? How far do you want to be away from your family, immediate family? Those are all things which are there. But I must say that we are constantly looking to respond to this. We're trying to create job portals where job seekers and employers can come together in the marketplace, that there is fair transactions, that people are not being exploited or abused. Constantly looking for that. Not easy.
How would you describe your relationship with the parties, northern political parties? Yours is an appointment made by the government, the president, and we'd like to know how you work with the political parties.
There are structures at the district level, which is called the DCC, District Coordinating Committee. Elected politicians and the governors sit there, and the local area politicians come together. They debate government development planning. Political space is open and free and available to all the registered political parties. It is not the job of the governor to do anything to that space. It is the job of the governor to maintain that space, ensure that nobody gets in the way of another, that the law and order situation is maintained, peace is maintained, and that you're accessible to all of them. We do our very best to be accessible. They write to us, they complain to us, they complain about us. So all of that is there.
In terms of the fishermen's issue that we are talking about, a big problem in the north and east, but do you think this matter has been seriously taken and addressed, and sufficient representation made by the government of Sri Lanka with the Indian authorities to ensure that the rights of the fisher community in the north and east are ensured?
Okay, let me respond in a different way. The issue won't be there if there is no fish. So if you overfish, nothing's going to, you'll be out of business. So breeding grounds, dedicated breeding grounds is fundamental, essential. Recognition as to whose water is where is fundamental and necessary. Fishing is an old habit, and they fish all over. But we have to regulate it. Catch has to be shared. There has to be rules in the sea, how you fish. Or do you overfish? What methods you're using? These have to be dealt. We're being compelled to deal with it now. Issue is on the table. There are protests. The temperature is down now. But and it's part of the joint working group's agenda. The agenda between India and Sri Lanka, joint working group, the foreign ministries, the Ministry of External Affairs, the Fisheries Ministry, fishermen's cooperatives. other civic groups. It's on the table. It's not going away. Absolutely not going away.
The question of land seizures has been a continued point of concern among the people of the province. Is that being solved now? Have you made any progress?
His Excellency the President has made a statement there should be none, no concept of seizure.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a question about, we're talking state land, private land. Private land, freeing private land as much as we can back to the rightful owner. Looking at gazette notifications, essential requirements of the state, balancing it out, ensuring that the paperwork is being sorted out, ensuring that we help the people with their paperwork, because some of these things are 10, 20, 30 years old. Everybody wants their land back. Balancing it out, dealing with it fairly. We are having that conversation. Ministers Ali Sabri and Pires were up there, Foreign Minister, Justice Minister respectively. They had a follow-up meeting in Colombo last week. We're dealing with all of that. Land is emotional. It's emotional for anybody. But land also means that we have to do it the right way. If not, title will be imperfect, and the incoming generations will have serious problems. But we're dealing with it, I would say.
You were the former executive director of the Consortium of Human Rights, humanitarian agencies. What more needs to be done to improve human rights in the province, do you think? We've been talking about human rights of the North. This is something we've spoken about internationally.
Yeah. I'll give you another take on human rights, which is not normally looked at. I have said it in Sinhala before. In every kind of civilized country, there is a constitution. Constitution makes a promise to its citizens. It's a constitutional promise to its citizens. Governments come and deliver that promise of the constitution to the people. So public service is a human rights service. That's fundamental. Then nowadays, globally, you have development standards. There are also civil and political rights, so on and so forth. So your rights are measured, your service is measured, access to it is measured. So across the board, it's a complex thing. At one level, are you free from arbitrary executive action which is a fundamental rights violation or an eminent violation of fundamental rights? And that's the job of the Human Rights Commission, to prevent that. The other is that, is the promised service of the state being delivered to everybody fairly or not? At another level, are you free from abuse from law and order machinery? On that last point, I can categorically state there is no space for abuse. There's zero space. Nobody seeks to abuse either, and it's not a conversation.
What thoughts would you share with us on the UN Human Rights Council sessions and the alleged human rights record that is taken up against Sri Lanka internationally?
I mean, okay, that's a bit of a tricky question. Okay, I read the UK report, I read the European Union report, I read the US State Department report, I have read the High Commissioner's report. And I frankly appreciated the US one. It's just a personal comment. I would say that I've also been in this area of human rights. Human rights has to be based on facts, not words. And that you really need to be up on it when you write it. You really have to be absolutely up to speed in what you're saying. You need to be informed. And you need to comment on what's on the table, not on perception. Having said all of that, dealing with the facts, and also another point I would say, I'm going back a long time, maybe to the mid-90s. Our issues, we need to sort it out here, because delivery is here. Nobody outside can deliver for people here. So if there's a battle, we need to fight it here. If there's a claim, we need to make it here. If you have to disprove it, you have to disprove it here. If you got the facts, drop it on the table, drop it in court, argue it, prove it. I think that's human rights at a level of advocacy. So I take a slightly different view, simply because I have seen many waiting. I've seen claims going all the way to Geneva, and I say delivery point in Sri Lanka, not in Geneva.
On that note, let's take a short break. We'll return at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24. Welcome back. During the recent discussions on the 25th of March between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the TNA, there was focus on setting up a separate fund to attract diaspora funds. The governments have not been welcoming earlier to funds from the diaspora community. But this shift in policy, especially at a time when Sri Lanka is faced with a forex crisis, how do you look at this?
Positive. I say positive. Let me be a bit clinical, with no offense to anybody. Money transferring around the world is subject to stringent global anti-laundering regulations. So whatever money comes or goes is subject to that. Then if you're talking grant money, philanthropic money, you have to create the pull factor. You have to create the credibility factor. If you're talking investments, that's a slightly different ballgame altogether, which I think is important. If you want funds for social impact, then I think you need to define it. So it's a combination of philanthropy, enterprise, social impact. These are the three that I can see. Different constituencies, different needs, different purposes. If you're creating a vehicle, then the vehicle has to be able to deal with all of this, to be able to reach out. And everybody who gives money wants to know what's happening to it, sometimes real time. But it's a very positive development. We've done this before, and it's happened in a couple of other countries as well. So it's a good thing. And I think we've got enough other models to learn from on how best to do this. I welcome that. It's a very positive development in the current context. And I'm glad that it's a refreshing thought, I thought. Very refreshing.
Your background in human rights advocacy, I think, would help us look at the question of the violation of human rights of the people at this stage. We saw the Bar Association moving to petition against the current economic crisis, calling it a violation of rights of the people, right to live as necessities are not provided. When we talk about the national economy and the situation faced by the people and the North and East, what have you got to say about decisions taken over the years by governments and the mismanagement of the economy at present?
I can't put one finger at one point. Sri Lanka is very dependent for energy security. It's a very serious thing that you're very vulnerable to the price of a barrel of oil, and that you're very reliant. Now, in other parts of the world, they've shifted from oil to other forms. We're extremely vulnerable. We don't have our own oil. We're driven by market prices. Then it's a question of food items. Food, from the 60s, we've been talking about various agricultural revolutions. And I think we need to criticize ourselves, saying 40 years, 50 years, we've been talking agriculture. It's not, we absolutely have the knowledge. We have the land, we have the irrigation systems, we have farming communities, we have seed varieties. Now, food shouldn't be this expensive unless the inputs are expensive or the market prices are inflated. Something is quite wrong there. So inputs matter. These are now, of course, coming on the back of 2 years of pandemic with shipping charges high. currency volatility, price of the rupee versus foreign exchange, the price of imports, price of fertilizer, all of this has a significant impact. Price of milk powder. Now milk powder, we should be in a far better position than this, even in the north. Our livestock is about 400,000. We've got only 100,000 giving us milk. We have to be raising it up. So these are, I think, deficiencies, a legacy of the past, where we should have done far better than this. Poultry, we are doing okay. Vegetables, you're all right. Market prices are too high, and we need to keep it down.
As we speak, parts of the country are experiencing power interruptions. A day, at times, 8 hours of interruption. Both Chinese and Indian companies have been looking at investing in renewable energy in the north and east. How receptive have the province been?
We're totally receptive. I'm not sure whether I said this at the beginning. We want to be a green province. Investments have to be green. We want to power up on the sun. We want to be as free from the normal conventional electricity as possible. We want to export electricity. We want to get our bills down. In fact, we gave us as a target to drop by 20% in the month of March. I want to see whether that's happened. We can do it. We can export. We have a captive market to export solar power to the rest of the country. People talk power, wind. Wind is a little bit more expensive. Yes, it's clean though. So going green is something we want.
But the current contribution of the renewable energy sector, especially to the national grid, is at a minimum. The solar power produces only 2% of the requirement of the national energy grid. And also, when we talk about hydropower, it's at a minimum. Do you think there's an enable environment, again, and space to improve, as you speak of the aspirations and the need to export energy?
Yeah, we can do it. But in transmission, electricity board has to help us. So they are the highway to transmit. But we can't wait anymore. So we wish to be powered by ourselves locally. We wish to power the rest of Sri Lanka as well. So transmission, the capacity to transmit without losing the power, store it, all this is something. But there is very renewed interest. Thank God for that. We are late arriving. I must confess that. We are rather late coming. We've given ourselves the 2030 target. We need to be going much, much faster. Sun is available on a daily basis. It's we who are late.
The tropical island nation, we're talking about tourism as well here, about reviving tourism when the industry has been hit not just by the Easter Sunday attacks, the COVID pandemic, a period of lockdown, but the north too has so much to offer and to be a big part of the national tourism industry. What measures are you taking here to attract more tourists, especially high-end tourists to the northern area?
Several things. Sri Lanka Tourism Board has made plans. We have every province has its own provincial tourism authority. In addition, we've also found areas where we can attract tourism. So natural islands, marinas. There is an expectation of a cruise ship coming once a week, going to 3 destinations around the Sri Lanka. We wish to be working with our nearer markets. If Maldives can do it, why can't we? So we wish to do that. Even the exploration of sights and the sounds of the north we have. Having said that, we must not exploit the local population. They need to benefit. We can't have a situation where we are catering to one population and not the other. It must not distort the marketplace. So protecting but not being protectionist. Being fair, upgrading our skills to global standards. We can really cash in on this without a doubt. It can be a very good destination, both internal and external, because sometimes internal, Sri Lankans can't afford it, and we really must not have that situation.
How much of a part do you think the Tamil diaspora is willing to play in investments, be it tourism, renewable energy, or other developments that you're looking at? The
voices and the sounds I'm hearing are currently coming from India. There are few. Now, for instance, I know of somebody who's went out for 25 years. He's come back. He's doing extremely well. He's young. I think he's in his 40s. He's exporting around the world Palmyra products. So there are people willing who can come and do it. Now, 25 years out, he brought back 25 years of learning. Now, that's the kind of guy we want. People who have worked outside, coming back, putting their experience on the ground and making it happen. We need to be doing more. We need to be doing more. We need to be welcoming.
We talk about one Sri Lanka. Do you think the people of the North and South equally feel about them as a part of Sri Lanka? I'd like your honest opinion here.
Can do. Can do. Can do. We must allow it to happen. People will go faster than we are. I would say that people will go much faster than the leadership. The youth will go that much faster than all of us. They are interested in other things. They're not interested in being hung up on old prejudices. So there is a whole new area that can be explored. It's waiting to happen.
But what must we do away with in order to create that environment for youth to come together, to feel as one Sri Lanka?
Artificial barriers, communication, modes of travel, affordability, security, where people freely, backpackers, people go out and camp, people go down south, people from south come up, they're out for a weekend, they're coming every month. I think that's the kind of traffic we want to see.
Finally, I'd like to talk a little about trade and investment to the entire parts of the country. As we talk about the national economy, we see China, India, the United States, Japan being increasingly involved in the Sri Lankan economy, and we see a regional power play. There are concerns, also protests for certain investments that are coming into the economy. But how do you think Sri Lanka's approach should be when dealing with these nations?
Okay, I mean, I say it half as a joke. Look at what Singapore does. How does it? I mean, Singapore is a tiny little bit of work. And how in heaven's name do they manage all of that? They have excellent relationships, lots of people, enormous free trade agreements with lots of people. And that's a lesson for all of us, I'd say. Our history is far longer than Singapore's. Our history with India and China are very long. We need to look at all those old relationships at one level. And at the other level, we need to be internationalists, I think. The world is international. It's not just little pockets of the world. And we are so interdependent on each other that we have to trade, we have to talk, financial systems have to talk with safeguards, but also we need to be grown up in the way we talk to each other. We need to talk the language of international relations. I think that's important, big and small at the same time. And as I say, go back to Singapore, little bit, big player.
I'm told we have another minute on the show. This is something I missed asking you about, our transition to organic fertilizer, an agro-based economy. The North, how did the North receive this, and how possible is this going forward for the province, especially as we talk about a lush environment there? Okay,
it's a very simple thing. To make things grow, you need to have a fertile soil. So that's an old practice. You use the soil, you keep it free for a while until it turns around. You allow the soil to be enriched, topped up. It requires nutrients, and soil on its own doesn't want vitamins. Plants want vitamins. So what are you planting? Which particular plant are you planting? Who wants more and who wants less? Who wants more water? Who wants less water? Who will survive at a higher temperature and a lesser temperature? All those variables come in. But old practices are valid still. It needs to have a tinge of chemistry in it, without a doubt, to top it up. Again, seed varieties, plant varieties. Inescapable, we want crops in a rush. We don't wait for 6 months, we want it 3. We want it bigger, not smaller. We want it ripening faster. We want a shorter tree, not the taller tree. So we are the ones who are actually speeding things up. We're changing the gene factor in it. So it's not a straight answer per se. Do we understand organic? Absolutely we do. We certainly do. We certainly can do a whole lot more. Now, for instance, we plant at the same time, harvest at the same time, and they look up in the sky after that. We need to be staggering our planting. Harvesting has to be staggered. That requires a little bit more coordination and scientific effort, I would say.
Thank you very much, Governor, for your time here at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
We had with us Governor of the Northern Province, Mr. Jeevan Thiagarajah, joining us at Hyde Park tonight to talk about the Northern Province, development and the aspirations of the Northern people. We'll see you again next week at the same time with yet another edition of Hyde Park.